Hello, Facebook friends, revolutionaries, citizens of America and the planet. Welcome to tonight's Fireside Chat. Thanks for joining us. We'll be talking tonight about latest developments in this moment of historic crisis and unstoppable resistance. And I'm here tonight basically to remind you that that resistance really is unstoppable. In the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it in the first place. We have it, and we're going to use it, and I'm here just to remind you that we got that power. And I'm seeing Gerald say hello, and Abdul Jones say hello, and Marla Peterson. Oh, thank you, Marla, saying I'm unstoppable. We're all unstoppable, all the more so for doing it together. So bunch of interesting developments this week we'll be talking about, and I'd love to hear what you want to talk about, because this is a fireside chat. This is a two-way, not just a one-way. That gets to be a little boring. So let me hear from you, and let all the other firesiders hear from you too, because this is, we're a team. This is about talking to each other. We're more horizontal than we are vertical here on this program. So I would love to hear your thoughts about what's going on and about how we fight back and how we build up. And let me just say, you've been writing so many awesome, wonderful comments. I spend hours on Wednesday nights just staying up and reading those comments. So even if I don't get to them during our chat, know that your comments are not in vain, and I usually get to read just about all of them, maybe not quite, but I do go through them, and I'm so uplifted and enlightened by hearing your thoughts and your visions and your struggles and your triumph, because that's what we're doing together. This is a battle between chaos and community, and in being community, we prevail, and we will prevail. One of the big events this week, as you know, actually today, I should say, it didn't quite happen, and that's this question of what will the Trump administration do about the Paris peace accords. And, many of us know and feel that the accords don't begin to get the job done, but they are at least a step, and for the U.S. to pull out of that is a terrible thing, and locks us into a very dangerous trajectory. We know that the Great Barrier Reef is 2/3 in the process of dying. We're seeing unprecedented temperature heights in the last 17 years in this century. They have all set new records for warming. Each year is warmer than the last. That tells us where we're going. We're seeing incredible storms, and the science is predicting that we will see sea level rise. Now, it depends who you listen to, but Jim Hansen, the foremost climate scientist probably in the world, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, his prediction, he's never been wrong. He started off blowing the whistle on climate change in the 1970s, testifying before Congress. And what he's saying now is that the real cutting-edge science is telling us we could see 10, 20, 30 feet of sea level rise, not just in this century, but as soon as the year 2060 is what his study actually says. And, we certainly seem to be going in that direction. So it's really important we stand up and we seize the moment. Instead of withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accords, we need to be stepping it up. Beyond the Paris Climate Accords, we should be adopting a Green New Deal. And it's so important for everyone to know that we can fix the climate crisis, and we don't have to lose jobs to do it. In fact, we create many more jobs. Right now, as you may well know, the jobs in renewable energy, they number about 800,000 in this country, and we could have a whole lot more if our legislators and our congressmen and women were doing the right thing. We should have an emergency jobs program, a World War II scale emergency program to transition not only to clean renewable energy, but to healthy, sustainable food production, localized and sustainable agriculture, which can sequester carbon. It can solve many problems at once, as well as making us healthy. We need renewably powered public transportation. We need to restore our ecosystems. Just creating those jobs alone would put people back to work, create millions of jobs, at the same time that it revives our economy, it turns the tide on climate change, and it makes wars for oil obsolete. So this is a win-win. And studies show that the savings just in health expenses alone from greening our energy supply and getting rid of fossil fuels, those savings in healthcare from heart attacks and strokes and asthma and emphysema and cancers that are prevented, those savings alone enable us to pay the cost of the green energy transition. And then, of course, there are the military savings as well, because when we move to a green energy system, we can no longer justify, and in fact, they're unjustifiable to start with, but our elected officials and all their in all their service to the fossil fuel industry and the war industry, they cannot get away with these wars for oil, particularly when we have all the energy we need right here at home, complete security. So this is a win-win-win. We need to go there. I'd love to hear what's going on for you. What are you doing in the battle for clean renewable energy? Because as Congress drops the ball, and as Donald Trump likely pulls back and goes on the attack of our climate and our environment on behalf of his fossil fuel patrons, supporters, donors, as they do that, we need to pick up the pace ourselves. And it's really exciting to see what other states and local cities and towns are doing. The city of Austin, Texas, for example, I didn't know this until recently, maybe you did, but Austin, Texas runs on 100% clean renewable energy in the form of wind energy. In many places around the world, including in some places in the U.S., wind and solar are now the cheapest form of energy. So cost is no longer the excuse. Jobs cannot be the excuse, because there are far more jobs to be created in the green energy transition than there are in sticking with this toxic fossil fuel system, which is basically killing us more slowly or more quickly, depending on which part of it you're looking at. But we can do the right thing. Above all, for jobs, for workers, we need a just transition that addresses the jobs of the fossil fuel industry and the war industry, for that matter, to be sure that they are not the sacrificial lambs here as we move to a clean and healthy, sustainable energy system. In fact, a Green New Deal says that everyone has the right to a living wage job with benefits, with union protection, and all that. So the issue of, I got to work a fossil fuel job, or I got to support fossil fuels because that's all I got, that really goes out the window, because everybody has a good job in a Green New Deal. During the Second World War, we transformed the economy from basically 0% on a wartime footing to like 25% of GDP was transformed to a wartime footing. It took 6 months after Pearl Harbor was bombed. And what we're looking at right now isn't one harbor, it's the potential to lose all harbors everywhere around the world with 10, 20, 30 feet of sea level rise. And that's just the first installment, because if we get to that, there's 100, maybe 200 feet of sea level behind it as we begin to melt the Antarctic ice sheet as well. So we're not going to go there. We can't go there. We need to fix it. We need to fix it now. The good news is that by fixing it, we actually improve our society, our economy, our health, and our state of peace and security around the world. Just, a shout out to all those who are fighting pipelines in my home state here in Western Massachusetts. Shout out to the people fighting the pipeline that's threatening the Otis Forest, a pristine forest in Western Mass. New York State stopped several pipelines. The Constitution pipeline, I think they just stopped the Northeast Direct, if I have the name correct. The Northern Access Project, actually, is what New York State just stopped. And New York State is also building big wind. It's all good news if we do the right thing here. And to spread that good news, by the way, please like this, share it. Let's get the word out that we, the people, do have the power. We got the solutions. We just need the courage of our convictions and to get organized to make it happen. And that's part of what we're doing here on the Green News Network, is helping people connect with their local movements and connect across the country between local movements so we can use the power of our numbers and the power of our vision and the power of having the moral high ground here. A quick word also, last week I think we talked a little bit about the absolutely tragic, horrific bombing in Manchester, England, where 22, I believe it was, mostly children were killed. And what came out, I think, after our discussion was that the bomber was thought to have been motivated essentially out of revenge, having witnessed himself. He was a UK-born son of Libyan immigrants, and in his visits back to the Middle East had just witnessed children dying. And as we know, this is commonplace in not only in Libya, in Iraq, in Syria. This is very much an ongoing crisis. In fact, just in the last 2 days, the news came out that U.S.-led airstrikes in Syria killed another 100 civilians, including 47 children. And the nonprofits that collect these numbers tell us that there have been 9,000 airstrikes in Syria alone just in the last 3 years. 9,000 airstrikes, and many thousands of innocent civilians. That's predominantly who are being killed here, both in Iraq and Syria. So, here we are as the White House is considering sending thousands more troops to Afghanistan today. Just today, we've had another shocking bombing with 80 people killed, and last I heard was over 350 injured in the embassy district of Afghanistan. So this is what Gandhi described as an eye for an eye until we're all blind, and it's just hard to sort out what's state terror, what is individual terror. It's not okay for civilians to be killed, whether it's from a bomb dropping in the sky or a bomb in somebody's car or in a suicide vest. It's not okay. That's why we call for a peace offensive, that is a weapons embargo to the Middle East, not only on behalf of the U.S., but we need to get Russia involved in this as well. That's actually the main reason that I was in Moscow for that international conference that RT hosted back in 2015. It was not about kissing up to any world leader. It was about holding them all accountable and holding their feet to the fire. We need a peace offensive, we need a ceasefire, and we need a weapons embargo so that our foreign policy is not being driven by the war profiteers, nor by desire for climate, for fossil fuels. And likewise, wars should not be driven by climate change, which is what we're driving with the fossil fuel policies that we have currently. This is all eminently solvable. And in fact, solving war, solving terrorism, solving the climate crisis, all go hand in hand by doing the right thing. So this is about standing up. And one other quick announcement. Ranked choice voting, as you may know, was passed by the state of Maine in the last election in a voter referendum. Why in a voter referendum? Is because the elected officials generally won't tolerate competition in their elections. So they don't like ranked choice voting. They don't like an open voting system. They want you to have only two choices, the greater and the lesser evil, so they can duke it out with each other. But that kind of leaves the greater good out, and that's what we're for. That's why we support ranked choice voting. It takes the fear out of voting. Maine passed it, but now the legislature is trying to repeal it. We've seen this before. So this is an announcement to anybody in the Northeast. There's going to be a rally tomorrow at the State House in Augusta, Maine at 11 a.m. to defend ranked choice voting. You can find out more at ranked choice voting, rcvmaine.com. So let's support ranked choice voting. We're working on it here in Massachusetts too. And then for those who are out east and can come to the Left Forum, there's going to be great stuff. The Left Forum is kind of, what the name suggests. It's a people-powered conference to get together and feel our power and share our solutions, our organizing strategies, and so on. I will be in a panel on Friday night, that's this Friday, at the Left Forum, actually starting at 5 o'clock. A panel entitled Election Theft and Why the Media, parentheses, and the Democrats, parentheses, won't go there. And there will be some wonderful participants in that forum. Greg Palast won't be in that forum, but he will be at the Left Forum as well, though he won't be on the panel I'm on. But you can come and hear him too. His film, The Best Democracy That Money Can Buy, will also be shown. And I'll be in a second panel on Saturday at 5 o'clock called Reality Check for Progressives. Why, more than ever, it's time for radical resistance and the independent Green Left collaboration. And in that panel, along with me, we have Medea Benjamin, who, of Code Pink, standing up for the peaceful, just foreign policy that we need to have. Chris Hedges, one of the really compelling moral voices of our era. Margaret Kimberly, who is just a wonderful spokesperson, one of the writers for the Black Agenda Report, and Gloria Matira, co-chair of the Green Party of New York State, will be there overseeing the panel. So that promises to be very exciting, a lot of fun. A group called Left Elect is bringing together the progressive independent parties that are not poisoned by corporate money. Socialists, Peace and Freedom, Progressive, Greens, bringing us all together. The Left Elect group will be hosting several panels, and you'll see about them, read about them, hear about them if you come. So come on out and join the Left Forum, which will be in New York City at John Jay College. You can find out more at their website, which I believe is leftforum.org. Turning now to your questions, and thanks for your patience. We've had a lot to talk about. Philip Halbeck says hello from Sweden. Hi back, Philip. Mark Lustrad from Eagan, Minnesota. Mark Greenleaf. He says it's June and it's still cold in Michigan. Same here in Massachusetts. Primo Alessio Trudeau says hello from Washington State. Hi, all you guys. Hilda Brunstad. Jill, I'm a Norwegian woman living in Berlin. I tried to do my best to support. Prayers must be a theme here. How else? Yeah, I'd say whatever does it for you. Whether you are a traditionally religious person, whether you are an atheist, whether you are a pagan, this is a time to invoke our higher spirits and open our hearts. As Martin Luther King says, it is chaos or community. Let's make it the latter. Riva Lynn O'Rourke says, thank you for coming to Maine and for being gracious when you wanted to leave. Thank you for staying to take pictures. Yes, I stayed pictures. I'm trying after years on the road to make sure I spend at least part of the weekend home here with my family this summer. So thank you for understanding, Riva. Win Whitfield from Atlanta. Mike Buddha, keeping on. Lots of love from Scotland. And he says, kindly, you're the right woman to be the first woman president of the United States instead of that other person they have in the White House. Jeff Pearson, I'm here to see the cat. Check out last week's Fireside Chat because Willie was all over the camera all the time. And I decided to give him a little break because he's being a little in our faces, I think. So I thought I'd give you one session off. Daniel Velez says, fighting the Rio Bravo pipeline in South Texas. Awesome. Thank you. And if others out there are fighting pipelines, please let me know. Just shout it out on a comment. And everybody, I think, takes courage and strength from these struggles that we're all fighting. Marla Peterson says, Ajamu Baraka is amazing. Thank you for introducing so many of us to him. And you can see him right here on the Fireside Chats. I forget which night he comes on, but he's on once every week. So stay tuned. He's got great things to say. Neil Hustis, we are stopping pipeline expansion here in British Columbia too. Wow, that's really exciting. And I have to say there was one of the South American countries, I believe it was Ecuador, though I can't swear to it, and I will try to check this and post it. One of the South American countries recently stopped all extraction, that is all mining of oil, fossil fuels, gas, gold, silver, etc. This is really huge because it is a source of destruction for so much. Let's see. Ian Hewitt. Hey, Jill. Ian from South Carolina. Still stand with you and the Green Party. Fight on. Thank you so much, Ian. And I know you have a great candidate, I believe, who's running for Congress, who I don't have on the tip of my tongue. But if you're not involved with that campaign yet, check it out at the South Carolina Green Party site. I hope to get there, if possible, to support him. Reva Lynn O'Rourke, ranked choice voting. I'm in Maine. We voted for it. You sure did. Let's protect it. Cheryl Sinram Rice says the Sabal pipeline. And I'm trying to remember. I think Florida. Is that right, Cheryl? If someone can post and let us know. I'm pretty sure that's in Florida, and it's an extremely destructive pipeline. As you know, Florida is right in there at sea level. And it's very dangerous to be excavating pipelines and all the rest. Ben Palzer says, can we talk about animal rights tonight? We could say a bit, sure. I think one of the most critical things we can do for animal rights is put an end to the so-called CAFOs, the combined animal feeding operations, which are unbelievably inhumane. They're torture chambers for animals from birth until slaughter. And they're bad for animals, they're bad for the environment, they are also bad for our health. When you confine animals and you feed them grain and they're not allowed to pasture feed on the things they're supposed to eat, they accumulate, it turns out, nutrients in the forms of certain kinds of fats that are not really, so shall we say, what we evolved with, and it's not good for us. They also get loads of antibiotics because they're in such close proximity, and that generates antibiotic resistance. So when we need them, we don't really have them. They don't work. So there's a little bit about why animal rights are very important for human health and for the environment. Thank you, Ben. Keep fighting. I'm a vegetarian too, so that feeds into this, no pun intended, but that feeds into this whole discussion of animal rights, how eating for our health is good for human health and good for animals and for a humane planet that's humane to all creatures. Sharon Agee says the government is supposed to work for us, not the other way around. Why does it feel like we have no control over our own government? And how do we get our country back? Well put, Sharon. You know, that's the question of the hour, and very much what we hope to do here at the Green News Network, and I must say in the Green Party, because if you add us up across our struggles, Black Lives Matter, student debt, 44 million people just on that issue alone, the immigrant community, we're all immigrants with the exception of African Americans brought here in chains and indigenous people from whom the land was stolen. So all the rest of us are immigrants. You put together immigrants and just student debt, we've got more than enough to win any election. So this is all about getting organized, and we'll be talking more about that. We hope to start our introductions to candidates soon and help you get control by supporting the candidates who will represent us, who are not sponsored by corporate money, who are accountable to nobody but us everyday Americans. Definitely stay tuned and stand up. Thomas White says, will you denounce the dude who killed 2 men in Portland? He was your follower and wanted you or Bernie. So let me encourage you to actually go to his Facebook page, because you will see that this is a what should we say? This is a kind of a fake news. This is a little fake news story in the making, and you can go to his Facebook page and see what his influences were. Basically, the guy and utterly, horrific, despicable murders that he committed that are to be condemned. Murdered in particular 2 men who were standing up to defend young women, one of whom had a hijab on. So he was harassing them in a very dangerous and threatening way. And 2 men came up to defend this young woman, and he basically got into a fight with them and killed them. Very, sad, tragic, horrific. And I have expressed on Facebook and on Twitter my sincere condolences to the families and the community, and above all, to the victims. It's unbelievably tragic. If you go to the website of this white nationalist, you will see his white nationalist influences all over the place. My name was mentioned once in his website in 2 years of postings. There's one spot where you can find my name. Otherwise, my name is not there whatsoever. Yet this is being pinned on our campaign. He never expresses support for me. My name comes up once, but you'll find Donald Trump's name many times. But more than that, you'll find Hitler's name. You'll find praise for Nazis. This was not a well person, to put it mildly. And you can see that if you go to his site, and that is, it's Facebook. If you Google Jeremy.Christian.581, see for yourself. You can see a fake news story actually in the making. Go look again. That's Jeremy.Christian.581. Don't believe the fake news. Check it out for yourself. You can see who his influences were. But let me say, for a deranged psychopath, the real question is not what were his beliefs. Let me say the real question is what are our leaders' beliefs. It's very important that we not be providing safe harbor to white nationalists, to racists, to frank Islamophobic, xenophobic, misogynist leaders. And those policies and those spokespeople need to be disavowed and fired from the White House staff. That would be a very good beginning that I think would help change the climate, because unfortunately after Donald Trump became a prominent candidate, and then especially after his inauguration, there was a huge surge in hate incidents and hate crimes. So we need to change the paradigm. As Martin Luther King says, we have a choice between chaos or community. Let's make it community. we are on a small boat, and how we treat each other really matters on a small boat. If we're going to get out of here, we got to get out of here together. And that means working together to make sure that we're going to sail together, we're not going to sink together. So let me just take one more. Do I have plans to go to Flint? I hope so. It says they need attention. It's a corrupt state. Some people with dual job positions and conflicts of interest. Okay, I'm not aware of that. But what I will say about Michigan is that they have this institution of basically appointed officials instead of elected officials. And that destroys accountability. It destroys basic democracy. So that is a big problem in many cities, and Flint is one of them. Another one, Benton Harbor, Michigan, one of the poorest cities in the U.S., is another city with one of these, what are they called, something managers, an appointed manager rather than an elected government. Although it did have that for many years. Now it's back to electing its officials. But there's an organizer there by the name of Edward Pinkney, who was essentially framed and jailed for a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, because he ran a recall election against their mayor, who had basically given away the store to a big corporation, the Maytag Corporation, that sort of folded up their factories and sent their jobs overseas. But in the meantime, they kind of did a land grab over the lakeside land in this very poor African-American community that had this magnificent beachfront property that belonged to the public. And the big corporation did a land grab with their influence peddling and set up a private golf course and golf resort there in place of the public beach. So Edward Pinkney, who is a reverend, was involved in the fight for everyday people, the fight that is going on across America. And Benton Harbor, in many ways like Flint, is another case study in rule of, by, and for the rich. And in this case, it was rule of extremely poor African-American community whose jobs had been basically overseen by the big corporate employer. So in fighting back, he kind of got framed for exercising the rights of citizenship, and he's getting out of jail after a year and a half. So I hope to be able to go to Benton Harbor in order to welcome Reverend Pinkney back home to his community and back home to the fight for democracy. So when I go to Benton Harbor, maybe I will try to see if I can go and also visit Flint as well. So this is to say the fight goes on, and thank you for sharing your struggles and your vision and your courage. Because courage is contagious, and at the end of the day, we got the numbers. We've got the solutions, we have the vision, and when we stand up with the courage of our convictions, we also have the power. We can create an America and a world that works for all of us, that puts people, planet, and peace over profit. The power to create that world is not just in our hopes and our dreams, it's right here and now in our hands. Thank you so much for making it so, and I'll see you back here next week on the Green News Network. And remember, green news is good news. Thanks so much. Take care. Like this, share it, and let's get the good news out. Thanks. Take care.